Sanhedrin to operate. The moderate Pharisees, embodied by Beit Hillel, opposed any rebellion. As the tax burden increased and Roman contempt towards the sanctity of both Jerusalem and Temple became apparent, so did the strength of a new sect increase. The Zealots, 67, radical Pharisees embodied by Beit Shammai, were dedicated to the restoration of Jewish independence and advocated open rebellion. In time their policies became increasingly extreme, their organization took on military form, and they managed to enlist the sympathies of the younger generation of the Pharisees and even some of the Sadducees. The Essenes were a monastic cult that had apparently split from the Sadducees and retired from public life. Possibly spurned by the difficult social and political conditions, they set up desert communities where they maintained strict laws of purity and justice. Social anarchy and religious unrest led to a widespread belief in an approaching apocalypse, an end of days. Other cults and sects sprung up as well, some with their own prophet or messiah. Such were the Fourth Philosophy, a group mentioned by Josephus, 68, and related to the Zealots, the Beatrizians, an offshoot of the Sadducees, and even early Christianity. The corrupt Roman prefects and their oppressive conduct contributed to growing resistance and the proliferation of extremist groups, such as the Secretu, opposed not only to Roman rule but also to Sadducee and Pharisee moderates. Even at these times, however, there were Gentiles who were drawn to Judaism and some even settled in Judea. Best known of these was the royal house of Adiabene, Queen Helena and her son Monobus I supposedly immigrating to Jerusalem and building palaces in the city of David. 40. Monobus II would laterally surrender military assistance to the Jews in their revolt against the Romans, sending men to fight alongside rebels. The Tombs of the Kings, an archaeological site north of the Old City, has been identified as burial place of Queen Helena. Urban landscape. Robinson's arch-urban Jerusalem of the early Roman period had two distinct precincts. The first encompassed the regions within the first wall, the city of David and the upper city, and was heavily built up, though less so at its wealthy parts. The second, known as the suburb or Bethesda, lay north of the first and was sparsely populated. It contained that section of Jerusalem within the Herodian second wall, which was still standing, though it was itself surrounded by the new third wall, Ha Homer Hashlishit, built by King Agrippa I Sad Smiley 66. The beginning of the third wall was at the Tower Hippicus, whence it reached as far as the north quarter of the city, and the Tower Sephinus, and then was so far extended till it came over against the monuments of Helena, which Helena was queen of Adiabene, the daughter of Isaetes. It then extended further to a great length, and passed by the sepulchral caverns of the kings, and bent again at the Tower of the Corner, at the monument which is called the Monument of the Fuller, and joined to the old wall at the valley called Valley of Cedron. It was Agrippa who encompassed the parts added to the old city with this wall, which had been all naked before, for as the city grew more populous, it gradually crept beyond its old limits, and those parts of it that stood northward of the temple, and joined that hill to the city, made it considerably larger, and occasioned that hill, which is in Enbasda, to be inhabited also. Josephus, The Jewish War v. 142.69, according to Josephus, Agrippa had intended to construct a wall at least 5 meters thick, virtually impregnable to contemporary siege engines. Agrippa, however, never moved beyond the foundations, out of fear of Emperor Claudius lest he should suspect that so strong a wall was built in order to make some innovation in public affairs. 69. It was only completed later, to a lesser strength and in much haste, when the First Jewish-Roman War broke out and the defenses of Jerusalem had to be bolstered. 9 towers adorned the third wall. Revolt, civil war and destruction. Destruction of the Temple in Jerusalem by Francesco Hayes depicts the destruction of the Second Temple by Roman soldiers. Oil on canvas, 1867. A revolt erupted following the appointment of Prefect Gessius Florus in 64 CE and his demand to receive the temple funds. 66. It began in Jerusalem, where it was led by local zealots who murdered and set fire to the house of the moderate high priest and a Bonds archive in order to mobilize the masses. From Jerusalem the revolting spread to the rest of the country, especially the mixed cities of Caesarea, Beit Shean and the Galilee. Roman suppression of the revolt began in the north, with an expeditionary force led by the Roman legate of Syria, Sistius Gallus, making its way to Jerusalem. Gallus failed to take the city and decided to withdraw. Pursued by rebel scouts, the Roman troops were ambushed in the pass of Beth Horon, losing the equivalent of an entire legion. Gallus managed to escape but died shortly after. A popular assembly was then convened in Jerusalem to formulate a policy and decide upon a subsequent course of action. Dominated by the moderate Pharisees, including Shimon ben Gamliel, president of the Sanhedrin, it appointed military commanders to oversee the defense of the city and its fortifications. Leadership of the revolt was thus taken from the Zealots and given to the more moderate and traditional leadership of the Pharisees and Sadducees. Lacking sufficient military or administrative skills, these were not military leaders but rather the men deemed able to conclude a negotiated settlement with the Romans. During a brief period of renewed independence, indications are that Jerusalem enjoyed a sense of hope and prosperity. It minted its own coins and a new year count, beginning with its recent liberation, was initiated. This short-lived independence, however, was soon challenged by the Romans. In early 68 CE, Roman general Vespasian landed at Ptolemy and began suppression of the revolt with operations in the Galilee. By July 69 all of Judea but Jerusalem had been pacified and the city, now hosting rebel leaders from all over the country, came under Roman siege. A fortified stronghold, it may have held for a significant amount of time, if not for the intense civil war that then broke out between moderates and zealots. 70. Simon Barjra and John of Giscala, prominent zealot leaders, placed all blame for the failure of their revolt on the shoulders of the moderate leadership. The zealots resolved to prevent the city from falling into Roman hands by all means necessary, including the murder of political opponents and anyone standing in the way. There were still those wishing to negotiate with the Romans and bring a peaceful end to siege. The most prominent of these was Yochanan ben Zakkai, whose students smuggled him out of the city in a coffin in order to deal with Vespasian. This, however, was insufficient to deal with the madness that had now gripped the zealot leadership in Jerusalem and the reign of terror it unleashed upon the population of the city. 71. Josephus describes various acts of savagery committed against the people by its own leadership, including the torching of the city's food supply in an apparent bid to force the defenders to fight for their lives. In the summer of 69 CE, Vespasian departed Judea for Rome and in December became emperor. Command of the Roman legions passed to his son Titus, who now managed the siege of Jerusalem. In the spring of 70 CE, Roman forces breached the third wall, then the second wall, and by summer had taken control of the Antonia. The Zealots still maintained control of the temple compound and the upper city. On Tisha B'Av, the 10th of August, 70 CE, Roman forces overwhelmed the defenders and set fire to the temple. Jewish resistance continued, but a month later the upper city was taken as well and the entire city burnt to the ground, save for the 3 towers of the Herodian citadel which Titus spared as testimony to the city's former might. 70. According to Josephus, over 1 million people had died in the siege and subsequent fighting. See also Alia Capitolina, burnt house, Jerusalem during the Crusader period, Jerusalem during the Ottoman period. Jerusalem in the Mamluk period. Stone of Claims. References.
Guds Yes, but I will take a break, charge my camcorder, then I will read more later. I think I will make some hot foods. It will be dark in a few minutes. The video splits in like 2 minutes. So let's do that.